True and terrifying encounters, posted by people online to share their experiences, either to find a way to cope, or simply to bring awareness to the darkness in the world. Oftentimes I add the disclaimer that all stories online are meant to be taken with a modicum of suspicion. But for today's stories, they have all been verified by the communities in which they have posted, either by submitting personal information to the moderators, or links to a police report and verifying their identity or other means to validify them. I appreciate everyone who's allowed me to use their stories. And with that, let's get into the stories. So lock your doors, sit back, grip your seats, and enjoy. I had blocked this story from my memory until my girlfriend reminded me of it a couple days ago. I started dating my girlfriend at the end of my senior year. Before we started dating, I used multiple dating apps. In many of my dating app profiles, I had my Snapchat listed so that people could add me. This is important. Nothing led to anything with the dating apps. I talked to people for a bit and eventually conversation would die out. When I began dating my girlfriend, I had deleted the apps, but never deleted my account, meaning people could still see my profile and my Snapchat in it. I realized this after a few people would add me, but it didn't go anywhere because I'd tell them I had a girlfriend. As you would imagine, the conversation would end there. But there was this one guy that added me. Let's call him Adam. And he asked me if I was available. Being straight, I was used to guys adding me, so I gave him the usual response. Sorry, I'm straight and I have a girlfriend. I expected him to leave me alone, but he didn't. At first the messages were normal. How was your day? What did you do today? Simple stuff like that. Being the nice guy that I am, I responded because I thought this guy just wanted to be friends, and having a gay friend is okay with me. Then the messages got progressively more creepy. He started asking questions about my girlfriend, and not the basic questions. Questions like, do you guys have sex a lot? Does she think you're good in bed? I simply responded with, those are kind of personal questions, and I don't feel like it's right for me to share my dating business. Adam would always apologize and not talk to me for a few days. Then he would hit me up again and ask creepy questions again. I eventually told my girlfriend about the situation. And for those who don't know, my girlfriend is super sweet, but she is also very aggressively protective over me. So she adds this guy and basically tells him that he needs to leave me alone. Unfortunately, this enraged Adam, who responded with saying that I need to dump this bitch now because she is a cunt. Naturally, I defend my girlfriend and I block Adam. Everything was cool for a week, until another account added me. The guy's name was Tyler, and he was super chill. He was super nice to me and respected my relationship with my girlfriend. As the days go by, I start to notice that Tyler's vocabulary was very similar to Adam's. I wasn't sure about it, so I didn't make any assumptions that it was him. So I gave Tyler's snap to my girlfriend, who adds him to investigate. As soon as she adds Tyler's snap, Tyler flips out on her, which confirmed that it was Adam. As soon as this realization is made, I block him again. From here, everything goes quiet from Adam for about a month. So I live in the suburbs of Chicago, and both my girlfriend and I live down the street from each other. So naturally we do see each other a lot, and both our families are really good friends. On top of that, our families would also house sit or pet sit for each other. Anyway, a month goes by until I get a letter with no address or name on it, just my name on the front. I open it and to my shock and horror, it is basically a love letter from Adam. The premise of the letter was basically him saying that he loves me and that he wants me to run off with him. The letter also takes a very sexual turn halfway through, with him describing what he wants me to do to him and him to do to me. At this moment, two horrifying realizations hit me. One is that he knows my address, and two, he dropped that letter off himself, meaning that he is in my town. I immediately call my girlfriend, who is equally as shocked as I am, and after consulting with my parents, we call the cops. Unfortunately, since I had blocked as well as removed Adam's social media information, and that the letter had no return address, there was nothing we could do about it. Day after day, letters would keep appearing in my mailbox, until they also started appearing in my girlfriend's mailbox as well. Her letters were far worse than mine. Adam wrote of how much he hated her and how much he wanted to hurt her. He also stated many times of ways he would inflict pain onto her until she broke up with me. Like me, she took this to the cops, and again, they could do nothing about it. My girlfriend's family had plans to go to Hawaii for vacation, and I was to house sit for them. The first couple of days went fine, until around one or the last nights of the week. As per usual, I was over at their house watching TV on the couch when the power went out. Mind you, it was around 1 a.m., and it was pitch black when those lights went out. The next few seconds were silent when I heard a window smash from the office. To understand this more, let me give you the layout of the house. When you enter the front door, to your left was a living room. Straight ahead was both the kitchen and stairs, and to the right was the office and dining room. On the upstairs level, as soon as you reached the top of the stairs, a bathroom was straight ahead, and my girlfriend's room was on the right, and the other bedrooms were on the left. I immediately shot up and grabbed a kitchen knife and ran upstairs to hide while I called the cops. I quickly got into my girlfriend's room and slipped into the closet. As soon as I was able to contact the operator, I heard the pounding of the intruder running up the steps. Thankfully, I had relayed all the information to the operator in time, who then stayed on the phone as we both remained quiet. The intruder took a left when he reached the top of the stairs, which gave more time for the cops to arrive and for me to get ready just in case I needed to defend myself. A few minutes go by until I heard the intruder start walking toward my girlfriend's room. In the only few precious seconds that I had, I slipped out of the closet and positioned myself next to the door. As soon as he opened the door and started to enter the room, I took the kitchen knife and drove it into his shoulder. A young man screamed in pain as I heard a heavy metallic object make a large thud as it hit the ground. From there, I bolted out of the house, where I was met by 4 squad cars and cops with their guns raised. I threw my hands up, shouting that he was upstairs in the right room. A few minutes go by, and the intruder was dragged out, still screaming in pain. With the siren lights flooding the street, I got a glimpse of his face. It was Adam. And I was informed later by an officer that metallic thud I heard was a handgun. Adam was from Texas and had traveled up to my state to be with me. He had rented a room at a local motel and would put letters in both my girlfriend's and my mailbox daily. He would do this in the early hours of the morning, which was confirmed by the security footage of a motel that he was staying at. That night, Adam had plans to kill my girlfriend and her family, so I would choose to be with him. He managed to pry open the power box and switched off the power to her house, along with neighboring houses, and broke in with the intent of her being there. Well, unfortunately for him, she was enjoying a tropical vacation. To be honest, I have no idea how this outcome would be different if they did not go on vacation. To be honest, I have no idea how this outcome would be different if they did not go on vacation. And I am grateful that I still have my girlfriend as well as her family alive. So Adam, Please stay the fuck away from my girlfriend. And me. I've mustered up the will to share this experience with you all. I'd posted about it the day it happened on a travel sub, hoping for a bit of consolation from internet strangers, and was met with rather callous individuals, which made the incident harder to overcome, but now, I feel ready. Perhaps some of you will have insight, because I'm still flabbergasted by what had happened. Anyway, here it goes. About a year ago, I decided to make an impromptu journey to Poland in search of relatives I had never met, but had only heard of via my ancestry research, and an American cousin who reached out to me. As a lover of travel and languages, I was eager to go alone and see how I'd do. I learned some Polish in college, and have been traveling worldwide since I was 21. Before going to rural southeast of Poland, I made the most of the trip there by first exploring Krakow, amazing city, with buses and trains being the prominent mode of intercity transport. I lugged my suitcase the 40 minutes to the vast station to buy me a bus ticket to my next stop, ancestral homeland. Now, being a country girl growing up, I'm still learning how to be adept at public transport and maneuvering people in streets. I'm also shy and not great at social skills, but normally that doesn't stop me. The main bus train station at Krakow was also a large, fancy mall, and I was delighted to find a McCafe with free Wi-Fi. My phone service does not extend to Europe, so that's all the contact I had. I settled in and messaged a friend back home as to my whereabouts. The McCafe had the aura of a Starbucks, but the cheap prices of McDonald's, another plus. It was relatively busy and open to public view where I was. Sitting in a one-person-sized booth next to an outlet to charge up my phone before the long journey. However, my sanctity was not to last. After a short time, an older, gruff-looking gentleman with a thick, tattered winter coat sauntered in and immediately headed my way. He seemed to be in some kind of construction work, as his coat was very warmly padded and dirty, with the characteristic reflective yellow and orange colors. It did strike me as a bit strange, since the station/mall was more travelers and shoppers than blue-collar workers. As for him heading my way, I figured with the laptop he held out ahead of him that he was just looking for a plug as I had been. Of course, mine was not the only outlet amid the moderately spacious cafe, but he chose to sit directly next to me, almost touching shoulders, and plugged into the second of the two plugs I was using. Sometimes, people don't have a sense of personal space, I guess, and this outlet was the closest to the entrance. I shook it off. He proceeded to speak to me and gesture at his laptop. I got the sense that he needed some technical assistance from me, a youth, and figured that would explain why he sat right next to me. I helped him set up the Wi-Fi on his laptop. In broken Polish, and he thanked me by kissing my hand emphatically and smiling like he'd won the lottery. I noticed an icon at the bottom of his screen, showing he had a Ukrainian keyboard equipped, and it confirmed what I thought I heard earlier of his accent. He kept looking my way even after he no longer needed assistance, and I pretended to be busy on my phone, even though my friend on the other end wasn't necessarily responding so quickly. I didn't really want him to talk to me. He kept his laptop slightly turned my way intentionally, as if he wanted me to see what he was doing. He opened up Facebook and started a FaceTime call with a woman around his age, or perhaps a bit younger. He pointed the camera towards me to show her and said something I couldn't understand well enough. I assumed he was telling her how I had helped him out, but their conversation seemed strained, and she made a forced smile at me briefly before they began talking loudly at each other again. I tried to mind my own business, but it was awkward being in view of his FaceTime call, and it being so loud, others in the cafe looked over at him. The call ended soon thereafter, and I thought he would leave. Instead, he closed his laptop and proceeded to question me. I tried my best to answer in broken Polish mixed with English, and he seemed to understand well enough. He was amicable, although very dramatic. Every time I finally understood something he said, and answered him satisfactorily, he would laugh and kiss my hand and not let go. Now, before venturing to Poland, my cousin had warned me that the rural, old-fashioned men may kiss a lady's hand in greeting. With this in the back of my mind, I wasn't sure if he was in the realm of cultural normity for the region, or if it was a bit too much. Being the socially awkward person that I am, I decided to let it go, especially considering I'd been traveling alone for 2 weeks at that point. I suppose some human-to-human interaction would not be totally unwelcome. However, his questions, despite the friendly smile he posed them with, were increasingly invasive. Since he seemed again to not be one for respecting space, I chalked it up to him being too friendly but innocent enough. He asked why I'm here, where I'm from and going to, what is my phone number so if I need something later in my travels, he can return the favor I lent to him. That one set me off. Even if he's ignorant to social norms and space, that one was odd to me even for an old-fashioned man. I didn't mind obliging him though, because my number would be useless in Europe anyways, and I gave him an alias instead of my real name. During this conversation, he kept saying I didn't need to leave for my bus just yet. It morphed later into I needn't go on the bus at all. I could stay a while with his family. He insisted he would like to repay me for my help. All I did was click McAfee free Wi-Fi and accept the terms. It didn't seem like much to warrant this much gratitude, but who knows with boomers. But he used his FaceTime just fine. My thoughts were fluttering around in my head. I kept declining and said my family would be waiting for me. A lie. We'd never met and they didn't even know of my existence just yet. But he said for me to just tell them I'll come later, to stay with him and his family instead. He also insisted on buying me a coffee, even though I hadn't even finished the one I bought myself just yet, and caused a fuss when I kept saying no. Mind you, this whole time, he's still leaning towards me and holding onto my hand tightly. It was getting sweaty. Because of it, it was hard for me to try and collect my things and leave, or even shoot a message to my friend, what do I do? He called to the cashier at the counter about 10 feet away and asked for him to bring me a coffee. The cashier replied that the man may walk up to the register and place his order, but the man refused twice. His friendly demeanor when speaking to me was gone, as he nearly yelled at the cashier to meet his demands, and threw the cash onto the table for him. The man turned back to me and was smiley again, and insisted I stay to drink coffee with him and chat. He knew when my bus was leaving, and where to. He knew because he looked over my shoulder at my ticket when it was resting on the table, next to my phone. I had it out to memorize the pickup location and time, and again, my hand held hostage in his. I hadn't had a chance to move the ticket out of sight. He was blatantly stalling me and still insisting on me to go with him to see his family. I finally got upset, not wanting to miss the bus and waste money on the ticket. Plus, I had a ride waiting for me, expecting me to arrive at a particular time. And in my limited Polish, I told him just so. The people pleaser in me was torn. But ultimately, the hostess who would be waiting for me had won out over the man glued to my side. Somehow he finally let up and nodded sadly when I said I must leave now. I gulped the burning hot coffee he bought, just for show, to not look ungrateful or wasteful, and thanked him for buying it for me. He refused my thanks profusely and insisted he owed it to me. And he still had hold of my hand. He kissed my hand again and again and again. holding it like the lowly servant does in the cartoons to the lovely princess they're indebted to. I put up with it once more with the hope that it would be over soon. He pulled me closer as he did this, and reached around my shoulders like he wanted to hug me goodbye. And I put up with this too. Despite all his rude insistence, I still felt like he was being over-friendly, perhaps a lonely man, and felt bad just walking away. His sudden jerk of my arm closer to him slid me along the booth closer to him, and he hugged me tightly. He kissed my cheek. Ugh. But when I thought he was letting go, he grabbed my face forcefully with both hands and turned it towards his. He kissed me on the lips twice, desirously, as if he were a Casanova movie star and I was his femme fatale. It was disgusting. And he did it in full view of the other customers sitting across the way. They'd thrown awkward glances our way throughout the entire encounter. Since we were the only ones talking and laughing in the cafe, they especially had noticed his loud demands to the cashier. I was too much in shock to notice if they'd seen the last part. I didn't care. I had 5 minutes to reach the bus amid a huge, bustling station I'd never even been to before. As soon as the stupid old man let go, I made an obligatory, forced half smile and a goodbye and escaped on shaky legs into the crowded walkway. I knew I'd missed the bus, but I had to leave the cafe anyway to escape. The next bus wasn't for 6 more hours. The man was probably still there, just inside the mall area, and I didn't want him to spot me again. I waited at a different fast food place closest to the buses and inside of a police officer standing at the mall entrance, just in case I saw the man again. Being in a different time zone from my family and friends, I felt I had no one to comfort me and made the mistake of frantically posting to Reddit and another sub. I got yelled at by the mall security guy for resting my shaking feet on the bar of the chair beside me and broke into tears. I only told my night owl friend from earlier about this when she came online later. And as I didn't want to worry my parents or boyfriend about me traveling alone, to this day, they don't know what happened. Who knows what he was really up to? Or maybe he really did want me to meet his family. I'll never know. I felt so gross and disgusting physically that I covered my mouth and tongue with hand sanitizer I had with me. This was in February 2020, but coronavirus had yet to be confirmed in Poland. Mentally and emotionally, I was exhausted and distraught, of course, because I mostly felt stupid for letting things get that far. So please in the comments be kind. Refrain from you shoulda, woulda, coulda, because I already know what I should have done and could have done differently. When all said and done, Mr. Scruffy Old Man, let us never meet again. I thought a long time before posting my story here. Or rather, 2 that happened to me and one of my colleagues. It's not something scary, but rather something very uncomfortable. And my friends told me it would fit in here. Let's get started. Both stories happened in the summer of 2018, when I was working as a facilitator in a recreation center for children, small sections up to 1st grade. We were in a kind of park about 20 meters away by bus where we stayed all day before going back to school at about 5 p.m. so that the parents could pick up their children. This park was reserved for us and therefore nobody else than us, our managers, and those who take care of the canteen are not supposed to be there, especially since around it there are only fields, a forest, and a building site, but it was quite far. Now that the context has been set, I begin the first story that happened to my colleague. We had walkie-talkies for the day, which allowed us to reach our managers, the secretary, or the infirmary in case of a problem. But they were returned when it was time to leave to be recharged during the night. So it was up to the secretary, my colleague, who was the last one to leave around 7 p.m., to put them on charge and then close the shutters and doors and go home. One morning, I think it was the 8th day, I had been working for a month with the children. We all find ourselves summoned one by one to the office of our leaders. So I go there without really understanding what is going on. I pass in front of the secretary who doesn't look serene at all, and that worries me a bit. My senior manager asks me if I returned my walkie the day before, or if I knew if someone had taken one. I say that I did return mine by pointing at it at the charging station, and I explain that I didn't hear anything else. I still ask why I'm being asked this question, and then my manager tells me. The night before, at 7 p.m., as she was about to leave, my colleague was closing the shutters when one of the walkie-talkies lit up, and a male voice came out saying, "Hey, Buenos Dias, you're beautiful when you close those shutters." I had a vile shiver go down my spine. My colleague being the only foreigner on the team, the person who spoke to her had to be looking at her and really talking to her and not a hoax. At that time, she had called her roommate who had come to pick her up and left every other day with someone. We never heard from that guy again. Nevertheless, we patrolled for several days to try to notice someone, for our safety but especially for the children's safety. The second story takes place in the third, and thus the penultimate week of work. It is around 11 a.m. when I am called on the walkie-talkie by my manager. She tells me that something very strange has just happened. I ask her what it is, and again, I could feel the shiver of anguish. A man had come to the secretariat and asked to see me, using my first and last name. My manager had gone to see me because she thought it was strange, because nobody is supposed to show up at my workplace, and apart from my parents and friends, nobody knew I was there. This man had then introduced himself as my uncle, and that he had to come to pick me up for personal reasons. My manager said that I was not on the site. That was not true, and that she would let me know that he had come by. According to her, he looked very annoyed and left without giving his name. You could say it was a plausible story, but I only have one uncle, who is my godfather, who doesn't fit the description of the man who came, and to whom I don't talk at all. Again, I have never heard from this man again, and have never seen him, but I still have this bad feeling that someone I don't know forged an identity to come and get me. Who knows what would have happened if I had gone? I am grateful to my manager who knew how to smell the trouble.